I'm Mike Hammond. Thank you for checking us out again. Thank you for your support with the podcast and everything else we're doing. It means a lot. Putting this message out here today on a different matter, a little difficult to kind of figure out how to do this and if it was necessary to do. But in the end, I just have some thoughts that I feel like I need to express. As you've heard me talk about, if you watch the podcast or listen to the podcast, it's been a tough few weeks for the Chicago Police Department family. On April 2nd, Deputy Rick Coyle of the Crittenden County, Kentucky Sheriff's Department was shot in the line of duty. Rick was a former Chicago police officer, retired Chicago police officer who I served with on the West Side in the mid-90s in the Special Operations section. I knew Rick. He was a good man. It was tough to hear that he was injured so severely. The worst of that came true, and then on April 30th, he succumbed to his injuries. And then on April the 25th, Saturday, April the 25th, Chicago police officers John Bartholomew and Nelson Crespo were shot at Swedish Hospital here in Chicago while they were transporting a prisoner to the hospital. John Bartholomew died on scene. Nelson Crespo continues to fight for his life in a hospital as of even today, which is May the 12th. So I want to go down that road a little bit. I tried to put this off and get a little distance to kind of deal with take some of the emotion out as much as I could, and a lot of the anger, which is not going to go away. But last Friday, May the 10th, memorial services were held for both Rick Coyle in Kentucky and John Bartholomew here in Chicago. I attended the memorial service for Rick down in Kentucky. I want to talk about that a little bit. Thousands and thousands of people and police officers attended the funeral of John Bartholomew, as is proper. It's a very emotional, difficult thing to get through, but never more difficult than for the family, of course. But as policemen, you feel it in a place that's really hard to describe. I want to go into Rick's memorial a little bit. You know, I thought I knew Rick pretty well. You know, the first thing I thought about was Rick's smile when I first heard that, you know, he was injured, had been shot. He had this kind of unique, little bit sardonic smile that just stuck with you, you know. What I learned at that memorial service, though, was I didn't know him as well as I thought I did. I mean, I knew he was a really good policeman. I knew he was a really tactical guy, SWAT guy, always thinking about that tactical edge and staying in shape and staying proficient and knowledgeable and all of those things. That's how I remember him, you know, and just working together. We didn't work on the same team, but special operations, when I got there, was a small unit, really, and we all knew each other. We all were showing up on the same calls and working in the same area. And, you know, his friend Dale Willingham, who moved to Kentucky, moved his family along with Rick to Kentucky after they retired. I knew Dale very well as well, also a great policeman. But what I learned at that memorial service was Rick was much, much more than that. You know, it was a extremely well attended memorial service, as these police funerals usually are and should be. I don't know the number. It was hundreds and hundreds of people, filled a high school gymnasium. many policemen, hundreds of policemen there, but hundreds of civilians, community people, students, faculty, because Rick was not just a deputy there with Sheriff's Department. He was a school resource officer. He was involved with their SWAT program. He took those things very, very seriously, which of course didn't surprise me. But there were things that were said there that were powerful and overwhelmingly emotional, but very heartening. The sheriff, Evan Head, spoke, and the principal of the school spoke, the superintendent of the school spoke, a judge spoke, and all of them painted the same picture, really, of Rick. And that was as a guy who put everybody else and everyone's safety up front, a man without ego in the way that he approached everything he did, and particularly powerful was Sheriff Head's speech about Rick. And it really resonated with me, because as I'm listening to him talk about Rick and how much Rick meant to him and how much he meant to his department, it filled me with a lot of pride in him and what he represented as being part of us Chicago police officers, and that really importance of the way he went there and took his ego out of it. There was no big city, I know what I'm doing conversation. It didn't sound like at all. It was, he did know what he was doing at an extremely high level. And he approached it in a way that spoke to the sheriff to the point where they were, not just sheriff and subordinate, but close friends, tactical partners. The sheriff said he learned a great deal from Rick. The principal, the superintendent, they all spoke of how much he taught them and how much he daily was in it and aware and available and was always there when needed, and would show up, like appear in places that he was needed. That's a phenomenon that is not uncommon among really good police officers. We noticed over the years that you'd see the people that you really respected, that were at the top of the game, they would just show up at places, and you'd be like, wow, it's comforting. And it's also like, how did they get here so fast? How did they know to get here? How did they, this instinctual awareness that is critical in dealing with dangerous situations. And Rick had that in spades, obviously, at every level. And listening to those speeches, the theme was the same. In fact, by the time the judge spoke, he had a full speech, and he said, everybody's covered all the great things I wanted to talk about, Rick. So I'm just going to give you my personal kind of reaction to him and my own personal feelings. And that in itself was moving, because, he's talking about Rick as the man that he knew. He had a dramatic effect on that community, and you could feel it and you could see it. I ran into some of the guys I worked with. There was a bunch of Chicago coppers there, which I'm very proud of. Especially it's tough, because we had the one going on here in Chicago. But I mean, those are the things that we try and do always for each other. It's part of the family thing, And I mentioned to two of the guys I was very close with that were there afterwards, I said, this community will never be as safe as it was. But, they know it. They knew that, and they understood it. And it just, I don't know, there was something about it that was really heartening, because I knew 6 hours away in Chicago, thousands of people were attending John Bartholomew's funeral, and those feelings were going on there, but you don't get, except for, the policeman and the policeman's family, you don't get that feeling like the understanding that, hey, our safety is now compromised because of this loss, because of John Bartholomew's loss. It's there. It's definitely there. We are less safe as a society because John Bartholomew is gone. We know that as policemen, and policemen's families know it. And there are people in the community that do. I know that there are, but it's a big city. You don't feel it as immediately as maybe it's just me, but I felt it down there. There is no doubt. It's not all negative, though, because they also realized, Sheriff Head certainly, and the people from the school certainly realized that his presence there lifted all ships, right? They are always going to be safer because of his presence. Maybe not as safe as when he was there and available, but safer still because he was there and he worked with them and he showed them the importance of resilience, not daily, but minute by minute, paying attention, knowing your surroundings, watching out for the kids, talking to the kids, hearing them. I think it was put out, it looks to me, around Valentine's Day of this year. So, a couple months before Rick was shot. But it's a very moving tribute to Rick and the other school resource officer there, filmed by the students, interviewing the students and why they liked both of them, why they felt safe with them there. It is really, it's a moving tribute, and Rick's interviewed there, and you can hear him describing in his own words why it was important to him. Again, taking all of the anger out of this as much as I can, and the frustration and the pain and all that, because although it's not about me, this is a thing, and I talked to some of my buddies after this happened, after Rick was shot, and then after John and Nelson were shot. The thing about being retired is, you don't walk away. You do. I mean, I guess there are people that do, that they move on and they go play golf and they go fishing, and God bless them. I got no complaint with that. I wish that was true for all of us. But mostly, I think when you make the decision, this is who I am, this is what I do, you don't shake it. You cannot shake it. It always is there. And so when things like this happen, it's a weird set of emotions. It is the grief of knowing the loss and what the families are going to have to go through, the feeling of real loss for the community and what we know it means for the community, and this feeling of kind of helplessness of being retired and really kind of being able to do nothing except talk to each other and kind of work through the emotion and try and be supportive of each other, try and be supportive of the families, and that when you can. All of that was condensed and so immediate down there in Kentucky, being, a smaller, tight-knit community that it appears to be. It was just a very powerful thing to witness and see, and an amazing tribute to Rick. It's not going to replace him, obviously. It's not going to replace him for his family, but boy, it meant a lot, I think, and it certainly meant a lot to me. I hope what can be taken from this, from the kind of macro for all of us, is the importance of the work that's done, the sacrifice. I think most people understand that when we lose an officer like that, people are great for the most part. There are always outliers, whatever, but mostly, even still, I get calls from people say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I heard about the policeman." I don't even know if I know him or not, but they just understand the gravity of it and what it means. And if you've done it for a while and you've been around it for a while, this becomes unfortunately common, much more common than we care to really think about. But, these guys are, I wouldn't put myself through the mental toll of trying to figure out how many of these I have seen or been through or personally witnessed. But again, whatever. It's not about me so much. I think it's important to get this message out there in the most non-condescending way that I can say this. I'm so proud of Sheriff Evan Head down there, and the way he handled himself. This has got to be a crushing thing. I know how it is here, and again, we have this big support network here. I don't know what kind of support network a sheriff has in a smaller community like that, because he's the man. He's the man, and I admire him a great deal just based on the speech he gave and what I heard about him down there. And the people of Crittenden County have a fine leader based on what I saw. I've been around a lot of policemen. I've been around a lot of great police officers, and I think they're in good hands down there with Sheriff Ed. So I don't know. There's not a lot more to say. I will say, I think for the retired guys that I've talked about and the emotion that we go through, the coppers that are still out there working, the men and women of the Chicago Police Department and every police department, the Crittenden County Sheriff's Department, certainly, being a Chicago policeman was, apart from being a father, is the proudest thing that I've done in my life. I'm very proud of that. I was proud to wear that uniform. I was proud to tie that tie and go to work as a detective every day. Did I live up to Rick's standard every day? Hell no, I did not. I tried my best. I worked hard, I think. Could have done more, It's a flood that never stops, but you do the best you can and try and do what's right, the best you can. And I hope that any Chicago policeman or Crittenden County Sheriff or any other policeman for that matter hears this. I hope that you take that pride and you understand the noise is the noise. There are always going to be distractors. There are always going to be lawsuits and people at you, that's always going to be. But, when you put on that uniform, it means a great deal. And you carry a great burden and responsibility. But with that should come a lot of pride in what you do. It is no less important, no less of a job now than it was when I started on the job or before. Things may change and it may feel different. It may feel like, the tide's against you, but that's just not the case. It is not. You are the stopgap between those who would hurt people weaker than them and those people that need your help. It's very, very critical. It always will be. And don't ever let anybody detract you from that mission. It's dangerous. What happened to Rick? If it can happen to Rick, believe me, it can happen to everybody that walks out the door. We live with that and we understand it. We sometimes, I think, put it off, think it's not going to happen to us. But after a while, you realize it is a lot of times it's pure freaking luck that you go home. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And I don't mean to be pious about that. It is just the reality of it. And after sitting with it for a few days and after leaving that memorial, I just came away with this sense of, man, did Rick go down there and show someone else how great it is to be a Chicago policeman and all of the things that a big city like this puts you through as a policeman. You stay focused and you stay in it, stay righteous to what you're doing, you can have an amazing effect on the people around you. And man, did Rick do that. Clearly, he did that. I guess that's the message, if anything, I wanted to get across. I appreciate the support. I appreciate all of you who have reached out and attended both services and have sent kind words and called, the police families that or walked up and gave your condolences to a policeman on the street. It means more than you could ever imagine, because we do at times feel like everything's against us, and you have to fight that. But when people walk up to you and say, "Hey, thank you," or "I'm sorry," it brings it back, to that pride and mission, So I'm sure there's more. I've kind of stumbled through this. I apologize. I didn't script it. I didn't really know how to approach it exactly, but I didn't want to just let it go because the experience down there really had a very strong effect on me. So that's all. Rick, man, you're a damn warrior. And I'm lucky to have spent time with you. I am. John Bartholomew, same. You go out, you do the job, and you take huge risks. You try to take precautions against those risks, but there's no protecting all the time. You can't do it. So that's all I got. Thank you very much for the support, as always. Take care of yourself and take care of each other.